would like to call to order this meeting of November 18, 2019, our regular meeting in addition to our public hearing on New Jersey CUSAC District Performance Review. Mr. Calavita, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DiDonato.
Present.
Ms. Lindthorst.
Here.
Ms. Long.
Here.
Mr. Markulak.
Here.
Ms. Murray.
Here.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Here.
Ms. Polaro.
Here.
Mr. Sawicki.
Here.
Ms. Tracy.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated by the Hopewell Valley News, the Times, the Trentonian on January 8, 2019 and October 31st, 2019. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being videotaped for the purpose of board review, future reference, preparation of minutes, and viewing on Comcast Channel 19, Verizon Fios Channel 32, and the school district website, www.hbrsd.org. May we all rise for the flag salute, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the October 14th, 2019 regular meeting?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. First up on deck is our student representative to the board.
So in the past month, homecoming was a success earlier this year with the tailgate and dance having high attendance. Early in October, the sophomores and juniors took the PSAT, and later that day, all the students enjoyed a presentation on student anxiety that occurred earlier that month. It was very insightful and eye-opening. Last Thursday, Student Council held our annual blood drive, and many kids donated blood and participated. In sports, football had a strong season this year with 6 wins and 3 losses. In soccer, the guys' season ended with a loss from Ocean Township with a record of 12, 8, and 1. Girls ended their season with a record of 18, 7, and 1. And also, they won the Group 3 sectional finals. In field hockey, girls' season ended last month with a record of 5, 10, and 3. Volleyball ended with a final record of 8 and 13. And the cheerleaders actually won first place this past weekend at the CVC competition, which was the first time in our high school's history. So fall sports are coming to a close and winter sports are slowly starting up. And also earlier this month, the Performing Arts Department put on their high school play Clue and had a great deal of success and good reviews. Coming up in the future, we'll be having our Student Council Student Appreciation events, where we'll be handing out donuts before Thanksgiving break. And I think I speak for all students to say that we can't wait for the half days coming up and the break. Thank you.
Well-deserved break. Thank you so much for that very comprehensive report. Very impressive. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you so much. I would like to welcome you all to this evening's meeting. We have several important presentations ahead. We are excited this evening to recognize the achievements of our National Merit Scholars, special staff retirements and promotions, and Dr. Treese will share our annual district achievement report. Our agenda this evening includes the approval of the memorandum of agreement with the HVESPA, which is our Educational Support Professionals Association. We value what the members of this bargaining unit do on a daily basis to support our students, staff, buildings, and community. I would like to thank their bargaining team for working with the board on a settlement that is fair and equitable for both sides, and my board negotiations team for their commitment to meet during the summer months to ensure we came to an agreement as quickly as possible. I would also like to recognize the election results and welcome new Township BOE members, William Herbert and John Mason, as well as Hopewell Borough Representative Jessica Grillo, who will be sworn in during our reorganization meeting in January. This also reminds me that 3 of our board members have just one more meeting with us after tonight. Michael Markulek, who leaves us after 3 full terms in service, and board members Susan Pilara and Peter DiDonato, all of whom provided us with their expertise, experience, passion, and countless hours of attention to our district. With that, I will turn this evening over to Dr. Smith for our special presentations.
Alrighty, first up for this evening, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Tana Smith for the recognition of our National Merit Scholars.
Good evening, Ms. Doldy, Dr. Smith, and members of the Board of Education. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an academic competition for recognition and scholarships that began in 1955. High school students enter the National Merit Program by taking the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, a test which serves as an initial screen of approximately 1.5 million entrants each year. Of the 1.5 million, roughly 50,000 students with the highest PSAT selection index scores qualify for recognition in the National Merit Scholarship Program. About 34,000 of the approximately 50,000 high scorers receive letters of commendation in recognition of their outstanding academic promise. Commended students are named on the basis of a nationally applied selection index score that may vary from year to year. This year, we have 17 commended students at CHS. About 16,000 students, or approximately 1/3 of the 50,000 high scorers, are notified that they have qualified as semifinalists. To ensure that academically talented young people from all parts of the United States are included in this talent pool, semifinalists are designated on a state representational basis. They are the highest scoring entrants in each state. This year, we have 1 National Merit semifinalist at Central High School. The individuals we are recognizing this evening are scholars of merit in many senses. From an academic perspective, they are truly exceptional. Combined, they are currently enrolled in 67 AP classes during this school year alone, and that does not count the APs and honors that they've taken in past years. They are dedicated volunteers, varsity athletes, talented musicians, and leaders in our school. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the 18 incredible young students from the class of 2020. Students, when I call your name, please line up. I'm going to announce students who are not present as well this evening. Elliot Bangirder, Bharat Cherukuri, Matthew Hirsch, Grace Podemaker, Dhruv Kapadia, Alyssa Liu, Sullivan Meyer, Sophia Yusienko, Yazud Nakra, Priya Nafati, Eva Nee, Eamon Rahman, Anna Salvatore, Zaid Sharif, Jacqueline Wolf, Maolin Zhang, and Hope Zhang. And our semifinalists this year, Lindsay Parker.
Congratulations on Boy Scout. Congratulations. Congratulations.
We're going to take a quick picture with the students as Dr. Therese sets up for the annual achievement report.
Parents, if you want. Feel free to, parents, feel free to come a little closer if you want to get a shot.
Oh, right.
Kids, hold it close for a second. Get y'all in. Pretty good.
For those of you standing, feel free to sit down.
There's a,
Yes.
Jenny, if you could move your-
Oh, this microphone? That one, okay.
He needs both.
Yeah,
Do I need both?
the handheld one is for
It's all right, it's
the
cool.
video.
Oh.
Just hold it.
So good evening, welcome. It's my pleasure this evening to present the district's achievement report. Now I'm going to do something a little differently this year. The state requires that we post an achievement report slide deck or format that I think is limited in how it informs how well the district really is doing and where we need to really look at our, where we're doing well, where we need to grow. So I worked with a company called Linkit this year, who works with a lot of districts in their data mining and really putting together more comprehensive reports so we can really dig down into where we're doing well, and we do very well, but where we still have opportunities for growth. So instead of the 3-year report that the state requires us to report out, which is posted on our district website right now, the 2018 school year. It's on the school website. If you go to offices and curriculum instruction, you can see that report. You will also see this one that I'm sharing with you today, which is more extensive. There are 61 slides here. I'm not going to perseverate on any one of those slides so we can get through it rather quickly. And there also, you'll find a 4-page executive summary. There were a few copies out front, but that is also on the district website where you can pull that down, and it kind of, for the language arts people such as myself, it gives you the narrative and a breakdown of what the highlights and areas of growth are here in the district. So today I'm going to talk to you about, give you an overall summary of our achievement. I'm going to talk to you about the subgroups, which is something that the state requires that we report out on. But as a district, we are committed to making sure that we have equity for all of our students, that all of our students have an opportunity to meet their full academic potential. So in my summary, you will see the policy that was just revised by our policy committee, and thank you. It is one of the most extensive here in the area, where we really are using this information to inform our practice, decide what programming we need to adjust or align for our students, but also to make sure that we're moving all of our students ahead. So I'm going to talk about what we look like in our subgroups in terms of race, and gender, and in programs. And programs, I mean our students that are identified as needing special education programs that have IEPs, our 504 students, our limited English proficiency students will be in that category.
So I'm going to start with this slide. This is the number of students that sat for the test administration this year and last year. And as you can see, grade 3, which is where we have to begin administering the test, through roughly grade 10, with the subject area specific tests of algebra, geometry, algebra 2, also being a part of those tests that we have to administer as part of the state compliance. You see that we've had a slight drop in the number of kids taking tests in some of the grade areas. There are a lot of reasons for that. In some areas we've seen an increase. There are some reasons for that that we know about, right? There are some students that are refusing to take the test. We have less students refusing to take the test than we used to. And then we are shrinking in enrollment. There might be students in here that were exempt this year, that took it last year because of concussions and other medical needs. So there are a variety of reasons why these numbers move. But I did want to say that this is an opportunity for us for growth. I encourage students to take the test because it does inform our practice as educators. It tells us if we're doing a good job with aligning to the state standards, as making sure that our students are prepared to go on and are career ready. So I encourage as many students to sit and to take the test as seriously as possible. This gets very difficult for geometry, algebra 2, as the graduation requirements have changed, and students do have an opportunity to take the SATs or ACTs and use those scores instead of the state required tests. So this is one of the slides that would be in the state presentation that talks about the number of students in the district who have either met, not met, or exceeded the expectations. We definitely want to see a decrease. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to flip that slide. We definitely want to see a decrease over here, and we want to see an increase over here in the students that are meeting and exceeding. So in language arts, for example, and I'm going to try to flip to a slide that makes a little bit more sense. This would show all of the students that are meeting and exceeding in grades 3 through 10, and then all grades. So as you can see, as a district, we are doing pretty well in that, and this is well above the state average, that our students are, meeting or exceeding at some very high levels here. Now we've seen a drop here in 8th grade, in this grade, and then we're up again. And then also grade 9, we've seen a little growth. We've seen a little growth in grade, or a substantial growth in grade 10, more students taking the test there probably. But generally we do very well, and this is well above the state average. Grade 6 is an area we need to look at, right? So we've seen a little drop here. We have done a curricular change in grade 6 through 8. So as we make changes to the curriculum, we do need to examine how that affects our scores dropping and then making sure we align. I'm going to return back to that idea here in a moment, because also, for example, in grade 3, we are seeing a similar, in 4 we saw a similar drop, right? So now the reading writing workshop that we rolled out about 6 years ago, we saw in our own benchmark assessments and our identifications for students who need extra remediation in reading and language arts last winter and spring, we started to see an increase in those number of students. So as a decrease rather, in those number of students, the increase in the number of students needing remediation. Our reading specialists and some of our supervisors really dug into what was happening curricularly in our classrooms, and we noted that we had a lot of teachers that were not doing the foundations program to the same extent as others. We have a new teaching staff, a large new teaching staff in several of our buildings, some of which who had not been trained in our program foundations, some of which who did not have the resources, who did not understand how to deliver the resources. So we had to go back and train those teachers to make sure that we had a balanced program that is not a part of the reading writing workshop. So when we got these scores from the state of New Jersey, it validated something that we had already identified as a curricular challenge that we had, and something that we've already made adjustments to. So I'm looking forward to next year an improvement in those scores, and I'm going to back that up by showing you something that we noted some years back at the middle school. And again, here are the not meeting and partially proficient students. You'll see these numbers are very low. That's a good thing. We don't want these numbers to be high. Okay, so for math, and these slides may mean something to the numbers people. Again, this is online, but I'm going to get to the bar graph, and it's a little easier to decipher. Okay, so here we are for math. Okay, now for these scores, we're looking at students over the last 5 years. These are students in the same grade, and these are different students. So basically, this slide is telling us, in grade 3, how are we doing 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. What Lincoln has also done is they've given us the following, the same students, same grade, so you can track cohorts of students as well. That data is, this slide deck is much larger than this. I can also post that as well for those people that would like to dig into that. Those numbers of students vary because one year a student might take the test, may not take it next year, they'll drop out of that mobility slide deck. I'm going to post that so that you can also see. So these are same grade, different students. You'll see in grade 3 in math, we saw a little bit of a decrease. We saw an increase in grade 4, and then 5 we kind of stayed, we stayed the same. Grade 6 we see a drop. 7 and 8 we saw a great increase. Now, if some of you remember from my achievement report last year and the years previously, the middle school had seen a significant drop in their math scores, specifically in grades 7 and 8, in those students that were taking the Math 7, the Math 8 test, as opposed to the algebra and geometry test. We dug into again, the instruction, the curriculum, and we found that what we were teaching our classrooms, though we're helping our students to excel in the AP exams, the SAT, we saw the evidence of that tonight, and students were doing very well in algebra and geometry. We were causing gaps in their learning in areas like what we were doing with teaching probability and data analysis. Some of these pieces were missing from our curriculum, and these were things that were aligned to the state test and that were on the assessment. We made adjustments to our curriculum. We've done a lot of work in that area, and now we see the results of that. So this is something to celebrate and something to be very proud of. So again, when I say the importance of this, we can glean from this data, these are one of the things I'm discussing. In math over in grade 3 and grade 4, grade 3 and yes, also grade 4, although we are moving up a bit. I'd like to talk about that a little more because I have a feeling, I know what's going on there as well, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. Here's our performance in algebra. You'll note here that the middle school, again, we're doing very well. We've also seen an increase. Here at the high school, we've seen an increase, but again, these scores here, this is an area for growth. Now, the students that take high school algebra and then also high school geometry, these are some of our students that are not excelling in math. Most of our students, the majority of our students, take those courses at the middle school level. We are doing well above the state mean in those areas. In the high school, though, we need to do some work. And now these are some of our students, again, these may be some of our students that have IEPs, some of the students that may have specific learning disabilities around math, and that really have struggles with that, or challenged with math curriculum. So these are areas where we definitely need to continue to do some work. Algebra 2, we saw a little drop, but that's not terribly concerning. I would like to see these higher. Again, I'm not sure how many students are missing out of this group, as they may be using the SATs or ACTs as their assessment to graduate high school. And then all grades, again, well above the state here. Okay, grade 8 here. We need to take a look. We're doing a good job, but I think we still have some work there to make sure that we keep moving kids along as they go on to the high school. More scores. So these are not meeting in partially proficient. So again, here we talked about this on the other slide. The high school, we definitely need to look at some of these courses. Okay, how did our subgroups do? Okay, overall, this is a performance in English language arts, all grades. Our Asian students here in the first row. I think I just lost my laser pointer in the first row over here. Our math and Hispanic, Latinx students are still underperforming compared to the other groups. Multi is just any student that identifies as more than one race. So we don't have any more data than that, or information about their demographics other than they identify as being more than one race. And then our white students here on the far right. So that's language arts. And again, drilling down. That was the elementary schools. Here is the middle school. Again, you'll see that consistent gap between our Black and Hispanic students and other ethnicities. And the high school. Math. Again, the gap still exists between the Black and Hispanic students and the other ethnic groups. This is the elementary schools. Middle school. And the high school. And the gap actually gets wider here. Now this one really was, and this has been consistent since I've been giving this report here the last 3 years in gender. From English language arts, here we are at the elementary school. The young ladies are outperforming the young men. Not by a lot, we're closing the gap a little bit, but that's been consistent. The middle school, the gap starts to widen in language arts. And then at the high school, we start to catch up a little bit, but there's still a gap. So overall, this is how the young ladies are performing versus the men, or the boys. Now, for math, the boys outpace the girls. So this is district, the whole district. I'm sorry, elementary school, sorry, first. ES is elementary school. So the girls are a little closer, but when we get to the middle school, we kind of start to level off. And I wanted to talk about this, I wanted to stop right here. Now, one of the things that we did with our curriculum a few years back is we adopted Go Math. Go Math is a very literacy-based math program. A lot of word problems, a lot of explaining how you came to your solution. Many parents came to some of our informational meetings and discussed how their children love math and now they were struggling with it. I think we're starting to see that drop in our young men. We just saw the slide that the young men perform, the girls outpace the boys in language arts. And now we've adopted a math program that's heavily literacy based. Now, I still believe that the program is a great program. But as we start to adjust the programming and how we teach our students, we need to make sure that we're reaching all students. I think that's helping us to close the gap with the young ladies, but we don't want to bring down the male scores as a result, right? So we have to talk about, that's something we're gonna have to continue to work on in CNI, in curriculum and instruction. Here's the high school. And again, the young ladies aren't quite where the men are. So here we are in that. Okay, so here we are in programs, and again, these are our students with our, who receive free and reduced lunch, our Section 504 students, our special education students, general ed students are here, just so that you can see the comparison between the two. And I should have said, when I went through the subgroups, let me just go back, because I think this makes a difference too. When we're talking about the subgroups around race and ethnicity, okay, this N here, this number here, and I'm going to get up because I don't think my laser pointer is working. here are the number of students that fall into these categories. So, when we're talking about some of these groups are small. I'm going to concede that now. So that means one or two students meeting or exceeding really moves the barometer back and forth dramatically. So I need to give those qualifications there when we're talking about those groups, although I would argue that if you have such a few number of students, we need to be able to reach them, right? But I did want to point that out because that is important to know that we're talking about, small ends in some of those cases. Our gender, we're not. We're talking about every female and male student there that's in our population, although there's some intersectionality there. Students that fall into more than one category. Okay, so I'm going to get quickly back to the programs. And so the gen ed students, again, the end we're going to be talking about with free and reduced lunch, that's not a large number of students, as you see, right? But again, if we only have a few students, we need to try to move those students, and I know that we can be successful in making sure that we reach all students. So in language arts, here at the elementary school, here we have the performance of students who are eligible for free reduced lunch, our students with 504s. Now that's a mixed bag of students. That could be a student that's actually an honor student or AP student that has a concussion one year or has to have some sort of medical, a medical 504, or they need extra time on a test, right? We have a lot of students that do very well that need extra time. Our LEP students, limited English proficiency students, that's a very small number of students. So this one you're going to see like 100% in spikes. That number's a little hard to tell how we're doing looking at this data. Special education, those are our numbers for students who have IEPs. These are our students that have IEPs for a number of reasons. Some could just be health. Many of our students have learning disabilities that make these tests very difficult for them. And then our gen ed students are over here, who meet and exceed. So again, we're doing very well. So those of you who are math people, we know how hard it is to move the barometer when you're up at the top over here. These are the areas of growth down here, especially in special education, where I know that we can do a better job. Middle school, again, the numbers for limited English proficiency, those are hard to gauge from this data. But again, special ed, there's a gap. Our free and reduced lunch students continuously underperform on these assessments. Here's the high school. This we definitely need to do some work. Many of these students don't have the option of the SAT or ACT scores. The state does have other opportunities for them to still meet those proficiency levels, but this is an area where we need to move. We need to move that. Okay, and finally, overall. Okay, in math, here are the elementary school students. Again, the free and reduced lunch students, special ed, really lagging behind. Here we are at the middle school. Sorry. And the high school. We absolutely need to do better here. And overall. Okay, so those are all my slides. As promised, I went through them as quickly as I could. And I guess we're going to get an opportunity for questions or.
Thank you, Dr. Treese. I'm now going to open public comment specifically on the New Jersey CUSAC presentation just presented. And we will have another open public comment on any matter afterwards.
Can I ask Dr. Treese one question?
Sure.
Absolutely. So do we know the percentage of students that are free and reduced lunch that are also limited English proficient and also have 504s, or so to see if they have a few things going on? And
I don't, but I can tell you, I don't know off the top of my head, but there is intersectionality there. A number will hit more than one category.
and if maybe our free and reduced lunch, are they more classified students than the general population? Just interested in that.
I would say not necessarily. But there is intersectionality in there. Like, for example, some of our free and reduced students may fall into the categories of our achievement gap with either Black, Latinx. Yes, they may have a 504, yes, they may be special ed. There are a couple of areas where there might be intersectionality. So that student, that one or two students in that small category may be hitting more than one category. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to make some comments too. So I guess the first thing is, just having been on the board a while, I'm very pleased with the level of detail that we're seeing. When I first started, the main focus was differences between the different elementary schools. And while we still track that and we still monitor how we all do, I think we're now able to focus on what I would argue are some more important issues dealing with equity and performance of some of our student cohort groups. I guess the one question I would have is, we gave some examples of following how some of our programs that we've enacted, like Reader and Writers Workshop, Go Math, have potentially affected certain things as we track them. At least in terms of, for example, differences in performance for African American students, Hispanic students. Could you give some examples of some of the things we've put in place to try to help reduce some of the achievement differences, we say?
Yes, so we do receive, while it's not a lot of money, we do receive some money from the state for the number of students that we have that receive free reduced lunch. With that money, we have been running summer programs to give students a head start that fit into a lot of these categories where we're finding that they're not proficient on the New Jersey learning assessments. We specifically have written the students that we're trying to address around that. So we capture, yes, the students that receive free and reduced lunch, or they are not meeting proficiency levels. So that has, in addition to providing summer programs to give them a jump start on the next school year, and to get some remediation in language arts and math, they also receive tutoring throughout the school year. Having after-school busing has improved those students, the number of students that come to that after-school help. And again, this is optional, it is after school, but we are able to provide a late bus for them to get there now. In the summer months, when we have the summer enrichment camps, we bus them. We bus them, we use the money to bus them, we use the money to provide them the remediation that they need, and we also provide some enriching trips, because a lot of the students that receive free and reduced lunch, quite frankly, don't get an opportunity to go to summer camp and some of the other things that other students get to experience. All of those experiences really help the student overall academic growth, right? So we try to provide those things in the summer as well. And we're just constantly looking for opportunities to adjust the curriculum, to make sure that we're meeting those who are not available to come after school in the summertime during the school year. So some of the things that we've adopted in Education Program Committee, where we've adjusted courses to make sure that they're more inclusive. Because also having students in replacement classes when that's not necessarily the right placement for them may cause them to continue to lag behind instead of exposing them to that rigorous curriculum. So we've tried to do away with some of the basic skills classes where students were not staying on pace, supporting them in the general ed class, and then giving them remediation so that they can come out.
No, thank you. That was very good.
On a related note, if I can piggyback onto Rosetta's presentation, the board was provided the New Jersey CUSAC. This is our monitoring document. This is a self-assessment that the district has done in advance of our monitoring. We're going to be monitored by the state in March of 2020. The document is there. It's also posted online. I'm trying to save the audience and everyone else from a 33-page presentation. Rosetta, if you're okay with that, we can just answer any questions the board might have and any follow-up that the community might have. It's posted online. But this is just the first step. This is a self-assessment of where we stand, and then the state will come in, review us, and then provide us a document here with boards sometime next summer. So this is just the first step of that.
I guess I'd ask one question. As we go through the process, do we use it as part of the self-assessment to benchmark ourselves and potentially make changes?
Absolutely. We have a committee, the CUSAC committee, that's comprised of teachers, everyone who is required to be part of that. That is a Board of Education representative, which is the president. We have members of our collective bargaining units, Teachers Association, as well as our Administrators Association as part of that, and then folks from the central office staff who are part of that, who look through, and we have to upload all the documents to substantiate anything that we grade ourselves.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Any other comments from the board? So members of the public are invited to address the board specifically on the district performance report that we just had presented to us for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You're asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. So public comment specifically for the district performance review is now open. Yes, this is specifically about CUSAC and thank you. Seeing none, public comment on New Jersey CUSAC and our district performance review is now closed. Before may I have a motion, please, to accept the annual performance review?
So,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. So before I open the meeting for public comment on all other district matters of interest, I would like to address the issue of the tort claims notice recently filed with the district regarding the potential civil lawsuit concerning a student and a staff member. The Board of Education and Administration take this matter very seriously. The teacher is currently on leave. The district has followed all appropriate board policies and state mandated protocols, beginning with the original allegations in 2017, and again when further accusations were made earlier this year. Due to the confidentiality of this personal matter and the pending litigation, we cannot comment further. We also remind the community that this is not a criminal case. At no time have criminal charges been filed against the teacher or the school district. Our greatest responsibility as a Board of Education and Administration is to ensure the well-being of our students, and therefore make it our greatest priority. Any and all allegations of misconduct are reported immediately to the proper authorities and are investigated by district administration.
Good evening. I just wanted to piggyback off what the board president said. The board is constrained legally about what it can discuss in a public arena, and as well as the administration, what they can discuss in a public arena about personnel matters. So any comments regarding personnel matters, we're simply going to refer back to the statement that the board president just read. Similarly, the board does not discuss litigation or potential litigation in a public arena also. I hope you understand that. So again, we're simply going to refer back to the statement that was just read. So we ask that you guide your questions this evening during the public participation session accordingly. Thank you.
So members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so the matter is researched by district administration. Public comment is now open.
It's my first time. Do you guys give me a timer or a countdown or anything? You've got it?
Yes,
Great.
we have.
So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sal Cowan. I reside at 50 Chicory Lane in Pennington, and I'm the parent of 2 children in the district.
I'm sorry, sir, can you repeat your first name and last name, please?
Sal Cowan.
Thank you.
C-U-W-A-N.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan.
I'm here tonight to express my concern about the Blackboard Connect emergency communication system. Following the activation of the system on October 25th, it appears to me that appropriate measures may not be in place for multiple aspects of the system. I've read Board Policy 9130-R, which is public complaints and grievances, but I'm unsure which administrator or department head is responsible for 3 specific things. 1, ensuring the system is tested regularly and correctly. 2, ensuring appropriate district personnel are trained on the proper use of the system. And 3, and most important, that all drills where the system will be used are communicated effectively to parents in advance of the drill. My attendance here tonight is to request that the district review and revise any policies, procedures, or staff training protocols regarding the Blackboard Connect system. In addition, it would be appropriate for the district to confirm that the use of the system falls in line with documentation required by state law, specifically the School Safety and Security Plan law. To be specific, I'm asking the district to review the following: any policies related to the use of the Blackboard Connect system, either during a drill or a real emergency event. Any training practices for district staff related to an activation of the system as a test or in a real emergency. And any communication practices for alerting parents to the use of the system during the drill. And lastly, I would suggest an internal review of the documentation available from the system from both October 29th, 2018 for Stony Brook Elementary School and October 25th, 2019 for Timberlane Middle School. I suggest it's important to review each activation with an after-action style approach, whether the system was activated as planned or by accident, which user was responsible for any activations, and the training they've been given, the timeliness of the activation, and any notifications to parents sent prior to, during, or after the drill or real-life emergency. Only by reviewing the information available in the system can the district confirm its policies and procedures work, as well as the functionality of the system. I recognize the value of having this type of system in place, but only if it's used properly. I am here tonight to respectfully ask to follow up to Dr. Smith's email on October 25th, that we have a commitment that you will work to improve the notification process to ensure a false alarm does not occur again. Again, my name is Sal Cowan, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan.
Good evening. My name is Kobe Sikorsky, and I teach at Timberlane Middle School. I am here tonight to share with the board my experiences working with Mark Amantia. I've gotten to know Mark well over my 16 years in his district and as a teammate for over 5 years. I've gotten to know him as a professional and as a friend. I have seen him in various roles in the building, and in every instance, I have seen him as a respectful, caring adult who strives to help students achieve their best. He has mentored students through his roles as both a teacher and an athletic director, and many students have come back to see him and thank him for the support he has provided them at a pivotal time in their lives. Having been on team with him, I have seen firsthand the positive impact he has on students. I have witnessed students engaged in the content of his class beyond the classroom doors and become enthusiastic about learning because of him. Students who otherwise don't enjoy school find Mark's class to be an enjoyable part of their day, partly due to his teaching style and partly due to the accepting environment he creates. Mark is consistently supportive of what is best for kids. He accommodates their needs, he believes in second chances, and he wants students to feel successful. In 2018, an overwhelming number of students nominated Mark for Teacher of the Year, an award most deservingly bestowed upon him that year, and evidence of the positive impact he has on students. Mark has always had positive relationships with people in the community. Having a room across from the main office means that he is always seeing familiar faces who want to stop in and say hello. These familiar faces are sometimes former students, sometimes the parents of students, sometimes people he knows through church, and sometimes people he knows through the community. Each of these interactions is positive and illustrates the positive impact he has on the school and district community. Mark's experience as a parent of 4 children has guided his teaching. Having raised 3 daughters, he seeks only to show respect for and empower the young women in his classroom. He has also served as an unofficial mentor for many staff members, male, female, new to teaching, and seasoned teachers. It is not uncommon to see a staff member in Mark's room seeking advice or sharing a story. I can attest to Mark's good character through over 15 years of friendship and collegial experience. The people who know Mark know his good character. Mark's history in the district further confirms his good character. The accusations against him were determined to be unfounded rather than unsubstantiated. This too supports his character. I hope this glimpse into the person Mark is will allow you all to understand why it is so important that we see past the hysteria and let the true findings of the investigation prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sikorsky.
My name is Danielle Arias. I'm also a teacher at Timberlane Middle School, and I'm the president of the Hopewell Valley Education Association. I'm here tonight to commend the Board of Education and administrative teams of Hopewell Valley for their swift action in protecting both students and staff in Hopewell Valley. As president of the Hopewell Valley Education Association, I personally witnessed the immediate response by the administration when allegations came forth against a well-renowned staff member. When I first heard these accusations were made against Mark Amantia, I was shocked. I've known Mark for the entirety of my 18 years in the district as a mentor, colleague, and friend. Throughout this time, he has proven to be one of the kindest, compassionate, honorable, generous, supportive, and well-respected people in the school district, also through the community as his role as a teacher, athletic director, and parent. Over the years, I taught all 4 of his children and could always see how dearly he cared for and respected each of them, the same way he respects every child who comes into his classroom. The level of respect for this gentleman is evident in the way staff and students naturally gravitate towards him for his support, positivity, and citizenship. Not a year has gone by in my 18 years at Timberlane where I've not repeatedly heard students talking about Mr. Amantia being their favorite teacher. I've never seen his classroom door closed regardless of the hour of the day, and anytime you walk past, it's filled with students, staff members, and administrators talking and learning from this fine man. Despite his impeccable reputation, the quick response of our administrative teams and Board of Ed resulted in not 1, but 2 independent investigations by both Division of Child Protection and Permanency and the Hopewell Valley Police Department. These independent agencies have professionals whose sole purpose is to investigate and ferret out institutional abuse. After thorough and exhaustive investigations by these professionals, it was no surprise that both of these organizations deemed all allegations to be unfounded. I would again like to thank the board for taking into account the safety of the student by allowing these agencies to conduct and complete their investigations. With both agencies coming to the same conclusion of innocence, I sincerely hope the community can move forward, allow the legal process to run its course, and make the determination as to what the next steps are for this staff member and student. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arias.
Alicia Mayfield, Pennington, New Jersey. I've had a son and daughter in the district, currently a daughter. The last time I was here was significantly more fun. You guys were congratulating me on having an instrumental role in raising $87,000 for the school district and getting $10,000 in a kind donation for resurfacing the playground. So I just wanted to say it is with this exact same commitment that I am here today, with a commitment to our district, to our administration, and to Mark Amantia. Simply put, Mark Amantia is one of the most talented, hardworking, committed teachers in our district. Neither myself nor my children's son or daughter have ever witnessed a communication from Mr. Amantia that was anything less than forthright, direct, and respectful. It is with equal conviction that I express my concern that any action by the Hopewell Valley School Board or district to change the rule of firing employees or any action against Mr. Amantia would serve to undermine the Hopewell Valley District's relations between administration, staff, unions, parents, and children. Simply put, any action undercuts the belief that the Hopewell Valley administration can handle the HR functions of its staff. It also sends the message that action against a teacher can be taken on hearsay since the claim was dismissed after 2 subsequent police investigations. The result of undermining the functioning mechanisms within our district would be dire. Relations between the administration and unions would become infinitely more contentious and suspicious. Staff would fear the consequences of any potential allegations from parents or children. As a result, staff relations with parents and children would be severely impacted. District administration would be handicapped in their ability to manage staff, and the view of the administration's competence would be undercut within the community. Lastly, I also have concerns about the legal implications of any action against Mr. Amantia. Even an at-will employment contract can be subject to wrongful dismissal claims. Unions have brought wrongful dismissal claims against other districts in similar cases. In an attempt to avoid one frivolous lawsuit, the board may open itself up to more serious and costly legal issues. One of the most important moral underpinnings of our democracy is innocent until proven guilty. Any dismissal or action taken against Mr. Amatia would undermine the basic moral and legal underpinnings of the United States, the state of New Jersey, and our local community. It would ostensibly state that rumors, innuendos, and legal bullying tactics count more than trust in our local police, belief in our district's administration to handle HR questions, and belief in the U.S. legal process. I know that this is not the message the Hopewell Valley School Board wants to teach its students. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayfield.
Abigail Mills, Pennington, New Jersey.
What's your last name, I'm sorry?
Mills.
Mills? Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I believe this is regarding the relationship Mark Amatia has with children, but appreciate everyone's statements. I'm reading this statement in place of my friend who is actually out of state. So she starts her statement that she sent to the superintendent. This is her account. She starts with, "My name is redacted, and I am a former HVRSD student."
Ms. Mills? Sorry, I'm sorry, continue.
Go ahead.
The name of the person that you're reading for?
It's not, it's been given to you guys, but I don't think she is comfortable with this public knowing it. I graduated HVCHS in 2010 and attended middle school at Timberlane Middle School from 2003 to 2006. It was at Timberlane where I received frequent sexual harassment from Mark Amatia during 2005 and 2006. I was 13 to 14 years old at the time. Mark Amatia was my soccer coach, my softball coach, and my social studies teacher. I also had contact with him during a summer camp I attended, as I believe he was a chaperone at the time. Recently, it came to my attention that a former student is claiming that Mark Amatia sexually assaulted and harassed her. The student's account of this harassment towards her deeply disturbed me, as I received this exact kind of harassment from Mark Amatia in 2005 to 2006. While I was a 13-year-old student at Timberlane, Mark Amatia repeatedly would massage my neck in plain sight. He would stand so close to me that his body was pressed up against mine. Mark Amatia would make inappropriate comments about my appearance and about my classmates that I had been flirting with. Mark Amatia singled me out and would pay special attention to me over my peers. He would attempt to make me feel special, something I now know as child grooming. I am deeply disturbed by the lack of action on the part of the school board to remove a predator from the classroom. I understand there may be a lack of physical evidence, but that is the very nature of these types of egregious offenses. To continue to let Mark Amatia teach at Timberlane Middle School means putting hundreds of young students at risk. I implore the school board to remove him before there are more victims. I would also like to say that by coming forward, I am not seeking any monetary damages. I have nothing to gain from what has already been a horrific experience. I am solely motivated by knowing that if I do not speak up, this sickening conduct will continue. The sexual harassment happened to me too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills.
Good evening. Chris Swenson, S-W-E-N-S-O-N, Hopewell Borough. By trade, I'm an experienced federal criminal investigator for a large law enforcement agency and a former major crimes detective with a local police department. I am not here in any semblance of official capacity. I am not receiving compensation. I donate my time because I believe survivors that have come forward. Tony Suzo and Tom Smith are involved in what is dangerously close to a criminal conspiracy. They've undertaken several overt acts to limit damage to the district and limit the knowledge of the public. This has deprived the citizens of their expectation of honest services from public officials and introduced a corrupt intent. I've reviewed audio recordings, read correspondence, and spoken with individuals with inside knowledge. I've spoken with victims and witnesses currently unknown to this body, spanning over a decade and a half. Suzo asked witnesses and victims to write statements and send them to him, not the police, not the prosecutor, so he alone can determine whether he's then going to forward them to the police. Suzo personally vouched for Amantea in a conversation with one of the victim's fathers. And coincidentally, he was Amantea's supervisor during some of the newly uncovered conduct in the middle 2000s at Timberlane. He does all this under Smith's supervision. Let's discuss the investigation, my area of expertise that the district hangs its hat on. Initial allegations were that a 50-year-old teacher frequently put his penis on a child, groped her thighs, and played with a necklace running down her shirt. If the board's statement is to be believed, Hopewell PD twice declined to investigate this despite 2C24-4, a felony endangering child welfare, a broad statute intended to widely cover injurious and sexual conduct without an intent requirement. School liaison detective Joe Macapuano was eventually assigned, an undertrained, inexperienced cop in a high turnover position who also personally vouched for Susan and failed to disclose another conflict of interest with another administrator. When more serious allegations arose, even the most basic investigative steps were not undertaken, such as a slime call, for those who know what that is, or court-ordered physical examination of the suspect. He deferred the case to an unsworn, almost done, overworked and undertrained civilian, DCP&P employee Justin Simney. By his own admission in a recorded statement, he doesn't investigate criminal conduct, is not law enforcement, and failed to contact numerous witnesses. Children were contacted by the district itself, and some were solely interviewed by only that civilian. I located and interviewed more witnesses as a volunteer off-duty individual than both Macapuano and Simney together. Lastly, the recent victim-shaming district press release said that DCP&P did not find fault with the district procedures. We have a statement from Simney.
Thank you, Mr. Swenson.
Lastly, one more statement. I'm sorry. I call on the board to request that Hopewell PD recuse themselves from this matter because of all the reasons I stated, and I thank the board for their work. You guys are in a tough spot. I will be available after the meeting for anybody who has questions.
Good evening. My name is Ricky Ng, and I'm here with my wife, Tammy. We are here as Hopewell Township residents, Hopewell Township parents, and Hopewell Township educators. Myself, I'm a teacher at Stony Brook Elementary School, and my wife is a director of the St. Matthew's Preschool in Pennington. I'm here just tonight to speak about my friend and colleague, Mark Amantea. I met Mark approximately 21 years ago when I started teaching at Bear Tavern Elementary School. I can't exactly recall, but I believe I taught Mark's daughter, Alexis, somewhere within my first 2 years. Our paths crossed sparingly since he was also a teacher in the district, but we met during conferences, the occasional class parties, activities, workshops, and recalling those early years, I remember coming away with the impression that he was really a nice person, a great father who was supportive of his kids and of my teaching. In 2002, as I was transferred to Stony Brook Elementary School, which was the new school at the time, and my contact with Mark diminished as I was now in Brandon Farms. We would meet up again when my boys entered middle school, first with my older son Ricky and then my younger son Dylan. And since both boys were heavily involved in school athletics, my path would cross Mark's regularly. Being the TMS athletic director, I call it, he was required to be on site for everything. This position would require him to oversee every Timberlane athletic activity involving hundreds of students on a daily basis. Hundreds in plain sight of everyone. Hundreds of students who were under his attention, guidance, and care. Hundreds of students who needed assistance and direction. And during this role, I never saw Mark express any frustration or anger given this demanding position. He always maintained that steady, friendly, happy demeanor. It probably wasn't shared often enough back then, but I know many families were thankful for his supervision. Over about a 4-year period as the Timberlane AD, I would encounter Mark numerous times from November through May. Whether it was during a basketball game or crisscrossing the Timberlane fields for basketball, baseball, lacrosse, he was the same Mark that I had met and remembered from Bear Tavern. Friendly, social, genuine, and again, nice. And knowing the kind of father and teacher that he was, I always felt at ease during my boys' activities, knowing that Mark was nearby, keeping an eye on them, as with other children, in case something happened. It was like having a pair of extended parent eyes from my wife and I. we felt comfortable and secure knowing our boys were safe. Then as my boys transitioned out of Timberlane, my interaction with Mark changed again. This time it would be on Friday nights at home football games. And again, as in the past, upon crossing his path as he prepared to call a game, he always took a moment to stop and say hi and ask about the boys. Always supportive, complimentary, and caring. Again, leaving me with a feeling of just a nice guy. This is my 21st year of teaching, and in those 21 years, I've taught approximately 500 students, met approximately 800 parents, worked with approximately 80 teachers, paraprofessionals, and administrators. And in this profession, teaching, you develop and sharpen...
Thank you, Mr. Ng.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Heidi Valenius. I live in Hopewell Borough, and I am a parent in the Hopewell Valley Regional School District. I do have a lot of concerns about the policies and procedures, and I will submit those in writing because I'm going to take my time this evening to be a voice for a young woman who cannot be here tonight, and I hope you all understand why we need to speak for them. She wrote a letter to Mr. Suso, and so I'm going to share that letter with you all tonight. We want to make sure that the board hears it as well as the community. This letter was written in the last couple of weeks to Anthony Suso. Dear Mr. Suso, my name is, and I attended Timberlane Middle School from 2006 to 2009. I did not have Mr. Amantia as a teacher. I wasn't friends with his kids until later in life. There was no reason for him to know me. As a 12-year-old girl, you know it's wrong that a man, a figure of authority, a dad, is seeking you out every day, rubbing your shoulders and pressing his crotch against your back. But you're 12 and he's an adult, and he's smiling. So if he's smiling and the other adults around don't stop him, you think it's normal. And the fact that you feel sick to your stomach is your problem. That was my line of thinking until I was put into his group for the overnight Camp Algebra trip. I was afraid, so I told my mother about his repeated behavior. I told her how every day during lunch he would come to my table and stand behind me, have his hands on my shoulders and his crotch on my back while he talked to the table. When he didn't have me trapped at a table, he would talk extremely close to me, hands in his pockets, with his pelvis thrust at me. My mom went to see the then principal, Dr. Coates, to file a complaint the very next day. Mr. Amantia came to our table less, and my mom came to Camp Algebra. This behavior happened in 2006, probably for many years before, and will continue for many years after if we do not protect the community's young women. Thank you very much for taking the time to read my note.
Thank you, Ms. Valenius.
My name is Paul Stolitano. I live at 6 Newell Place in Hopewell, New Jersey. I'm going to be reading a prepared statement from the father of the victim, Student S. From my point of view, Tom Smith has a tenuous relationship with the truth. I could literally spend hours going through the inaccuracies in the various public statements he has made regarding the matter, but since I only have 3 minutes, I'll stick to 2. The first centers around the inconsistency in the district's public statements. When the district first publicly commented on the tort claim notice, Tom stated that the district first learned of the allegations contained in the tort claim notice in November of 2018. But yet just days later at the board meeting, Tom stated, completely out of the blue and contradicting his earlier statements, that the district supposedly first contacted DCP&P, the parents, and law enforcement in spring of 2017. As a side note, Tom can't even get the time frame right here. The victim first made these allegations to her guidance counselor, Amanda Ferteg, during the fall of 2016. And in case the members of the board are wondering, there is a statement on file with the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office made by Amanda Ferteg that corroborates the victim first reporting this in fall 2016, not spring of 2017, as is claimed. Now here's the thing. When this was first reported by the victim for a second time in November 2018, Rachel Curran, the high school guidance counselor whom my daughter spoke to, followed procedure, and the parents, law enforcement, the superintendent's office, and DCP&P were all notified. Subsequently, the parents were contacted by Ms. Curran, by Tony Suzo, by Detective Joe Macaquano, and IAIU investigator Justin Simony. In fact, Justin was at the victim's house just days after the allegations were re-reported. In 2017, when the district claims it notified the parents, law enforcement, and DCP&P, the parents were contacted by no one. That's right, no one. Further, over the course of the last year, the parents have had conversations with Tom Smith, Tony Suzo, Nicole Gianfredi, Tricia Pinelli, all from HVRSD, Joe Macaquano from Hopewell PD, Justin Simony from IAIU, and the Mercer County's prosecutor's office. Not once was it ever mentioned that the district reported this in 2017. The logic doesn't add up. So my question to Tom and the board is simple. What documentation do you have to validate these claims that you contacted the parents, police, and DCP&P in 2017? Next, let's quickly cover the investigation. First, the prosecutor. The prosecutor told the family directly that he fully believes their daughter, but that with the evidence that was available at the time, they could not bring criminal charges. Now, in his public statements, Tom has equated not bringing criminal charges to no evidence of wrongdoing. The prosecutor's office has stated to the family that they have not spoken to Tom about this case, certainly have not shared any evidence, and stated that declining to press criminal charges does not in any way equate to no evidence.
Thank you, Mr.
of wrongdoing.
Spellatano.
So my question is, why does Tom keep saying that?
My name is Jennifer Stilitano, 6 Knoll Place, Hopewell Borough. In regard to student S, I am reading a brief statement written by her mother. I would like to respectfully request reasonable leniency should I go over time. My daughter is known to the public as Student S, as the girl who came forward to share her story of the near daily physical contact, fear, and humiliation that culminated in an attack in a locked classroom, pinned against the wall by her teacher, terrified and struggling to keep her pants up as he pulled them down her legs, himself exposed. Stabbing him in the arm with a pencil in an attempt to protect herself. This is the girl people hear about in the news and on social media, but this girl, she's so much more. She's my child. A kind, smart, loving soul with a great sense of humor and a wisdom beyond her years. And also, as we've seen time and again, an incredible strength and compassion for others. But she's suffering. Our family is suffering. What gets lost in all the talk of legal terms and broken procedures is the fact that we're real people. My husband and I are parents who, like everyone here, put their child on a school bus, never thinking the unthinkable. Our daughter had always loved school. It was her favorite thing in the world. She was an honors student, a volunteer, a Girl Scout, and an athlete. She was happy and she felt safe. Until the fall of 8th grade, when she reported to her guidance counselor that her teacher was making her uncomfortable. He was massaging her neck and back, squeezing tightly when she would try to squirm away, playing intimately with her jewelry, making fun of her in front of the class, often about her appearance or her nervous speech pattern. She wears a hearing aid and sometimes she stammers. She told her guidance counselor that he had moved her to the back of the room and was pressing his lower body up against her, pulling her shoulders back against the chair when she tried to shift away. She knew it felt wrong, but she was still scared to tell anyone, worried about getting a teacher in trouble. Upon hearing that other girls were upset and talking about the same things, she, along with a friend from another class who was having the same experience, found the courage to ask for help from a person who had actively encouraged her trust, her guidance counselor. When she did so, she was met with something unexpected. "I know he can be friendly," her counselor told her nervously. "You seem uncomfortable. I'll talk to him." And that was it. No confirmation that this was unacceptable behavior from a teacher. No assurance that she was doing the right thing by reporting this. Despite the lack of support, my daughter made 3 more trips to the counselor that fall, each time repeating her increasing discomfort with the teacher's actions. She was never removed from the class, never informed that these behaviors would be investigated, and never told that her parents or anyone else would be notified. Instead, she was made to feel it was not right for her to ask for help. Because of this, she didn't tell her family.
Thank you, Ms.
She didn't.
Delatano.
Hi, my name is Layla Rich. I live at 1 Newell Place in Hopewell Borough, and thank you for letting me finish this letter to my neighbors and colleagues and to the board. She didn't tell us. She was worried that her parents would flip out and make a scene, and she was right. We absolutely would have. We would have been at that school in a heartbeat demanding to know what was going on, but she remained silent like so many kids do, and endured the escalating harassment and eventual assault. We had noticed our daughter become more and more anxious as the school year progressed, suffering panic attacks, which was something she hadn't experienced before. Sometimes she would end up in the nurse's office, but the teacher would notice that she wasn't there, so he would go look for her. He would leave his class unattended, walk into the nurse's office, and find her on the bed, at times sitting down next to her. He would sometimes follow her into the other classes and stand along the wall watching her. One of her panic attacks was bad enough to land her in the ER. I had to pick her up from school to bring her there. It was in the afternoon, shortly before she would have had his class. We took her to a therapist that spring. She withdrew from us, spending more and more time in her room alone. She no longer wanted to be hugged. She was still our wonderful daughter, just more distant and less sure of herself, less happy. We thought, well, maybe this is what it's like having a teenager. We had no idea. This continued through 8th and 9th grade. As our younger daughter entered Timberlane last fall, our older daughter began experiencing migraines. She was agitated and had trouble sleeping. One night in November, when I reached down to give her a hug goodnight, she recoiled from me, her eyes wide, and said something that's burned into my mind forever. I've been remembering things. I didn't know what this meant, but I knew it was something bad. My heart dropped as I sat down on the edge of her bed, and her words and tears came tumbling out. She told me all about the massages and the touching and how he would mock her, how he would slam her into the classroom doorway with his hip, and how he would press himself against her. How she had asked her guidance counselor for help over and over, but eventually stopped because she thought she didn't believe her. And then she said one more thing, something that's made my heart drop even further than before. I know there's more, but it's deep down, and I'm not ready to talk about it. Over the course of the past year, our life has devolved into a nightmare. Over many months, with much therapy, our daughter came to terms with what had happened in the locked classroom that day. She and my husband and I have met with the police, DCP&P, and detectives and prosecutors from the Special Victims Unit. She entered a program at Princeton House where she was diagnosed with PTSD. She's strong and brave, but she's also in so much pain. She has vivid nightmares, she cries. We can't make it through a concert or a movie because the dark and the noise are too much for her. She misses her friends. Once a cross-country runner and an honor student who loved the challenge of AP courses, she now rarely makes it through a full school day.
Thank you, Ms. Rich.
Paula Hurl, Hopewell Township. I have a daughter in 7th grade, and I personally wanted to hear...
I'm sorry, can you say your name again?
Paula Hurl. Hurl.
Pearl?
H-E-A-R-L-E. My daughter's in Timberlane. Mom, I'm not doing so good. Can you come get me? She chose to repeat the 10th grade because she passed, because last year she was a blur. She tried so hard to heal, to get some semblance of her life back, but it's hard when you're mired by this. And we're doing this because we don't want this nightmare to ever happen to anyone else. Our experience with the district this past year has been confusing at best and hostile at worst. Back in 8th grade, our daughter thought her counsellor didn't believe her or thought her allegations weren't worthy of attention. The district seemed content in letting us think that until we learn differently from the prosecutor this spring. They've interviewed the counsellor. We discovered that at the time she had told the vice principal. The vice principal had told the principal. The assistant superintendent also knew, perhaps others. And all of them, 4 people, if not more, they left her in that classroom. They didn't tell us, they didn't report it. As of 2 weeks ago, they were claiming otherwise, but that's the first thing we heard of it. We were proactively contacting exactly only through all of this by the administration. when Tony Souza called to explain the investigative process. I asked him at the time if the teacher would know her name because she was afraid. He said not until the investigations and the report were complete. By afternoon, he had contacted the teacher and had told him our daughter's name. That might not seem like a big deal to him, but to our family, it resulted in months of deadbolt in the door. No one contacted us when the teacher ended up returning, even though my younger daughter was in that same school. Our kids learned that he was coming back through an Instagram post. Video surveillance footage was pulled on my daughter. She was yelled at by a teachers' union rep. We ended up pulling our kids from the district because we had no choice. They missed their friends. Nothing in our life is the same. The damage that my daughter endures to this day and will to some degree for the rest of her life is threefold. The daily abuse sown of her in a deep sense of fear, anxiety and dread. The assault ultimately traumatized her, and not being listened to, not being helped, and not being heard. That's what scarred her more deeply than you can imagine. The administration could have prevented this abuse many years ago, the year that my daughter asked for help. They could have done the right thing this past year, and they can still do it now. Instead, we have a passive abuse culture where the adults charged with protecting our children choose to instead turn a blind eye. And when a child and a family won't let them do that anymore, they try to quiet and discredit them, and finally resort to false outhoods. Tom Smith, I dare you to look us in the eyes and to tell us that anyone notified us, that anyone told us what this teacher was doing to our daughter back in 8th grade. Who supposedly contacted us and when? Where are the records of the phone calls or of the emails, of anything? They didn't exist before it happened.
Thank you, Ms. Earle.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Jackie Sullivan, 28 Elm Street, Hopewell Borough.
Ms. Sullivan, just one moment, please.
It's
There were
almost
people
done.
waiting in line. Is everyone okay?
I appreciate your patience. Thank you. It's almost done. Dr. Treese, Mr. Suzo, Dr. Smith, do you understand that a community of parents entrusts you with their children every day? That these children trust you. They look up to you to teach them and keep them safe. And God forbid, should they not feel safe and they ask you for help, then you need to do everything in your power to do right by them. People who choose to work with and on behalf of kids knowingly take on the sacred and fundamental responsibility to protect them. Why has this duty fallen through the hands of the district for so many years and instead landed on the shoulders of the kids and families who are already suffering? People who wouldn't be if procedures were followed and those in charge had chose to do right by the children. I'll never understand. All my daughter wanted to do was to go to school. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your teaching.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Wow. Okay. So, my name is Chris Clay. I lived in Hopewell Township for 26 years. I raised my family here, and my children were educated in the Hopewell Valley Public Schools. I have a lot more to say, but I'm just going to say what I wrote, and then maybe I'll just email you or whatever. It's way less than 3 minutes, so I'm just going to say this. I'd like to tell you about the Mark Amantia that I know. All right? The Clay and the Amantia families have spent countless days, which have turned into years in each other's company. I've witnessed Mark in many personal and public settings: home, school, church, volunteering, parties, you name it. The Clays and the Amantias have been in the same venues. The Mark I know is professional, hardworking, calm, always smiling, and most importantly, compassionate. When his name and picture were published based on an attorney's press release, followed by an appearance of an anonymously created and, in my opinion, libelous website, many of Mark's friends and family urged him to fight back aggressively. But you know what? That's not Mark. He listened to the many well-meaning suggestions, but Mark Amantia is a man of great faith and moral character. He knows that how he chooses to handle this situation and any adversity will ultimately be judged by God alone. Mark is choosing, as always, to be calm and patient and persevere with courage, kindness, and compassion. Traits of his that haven't changed in the more than 25 years of our friendship.
Thank you, Ms. Clay.
Hi, my name is Melissa Cookman. I live at 35B East Broad Street in Hopewell Borough. I appreciate how many parents are here supporting this teacher. A lot of parents supported Mr. Paterno, gymnastics coaches, too many priests that I can't mention. They are good for some people. That doesn't mean he couldn't have done these horrible, horrible things to a young girl. And no one should have to defend a victim. I know this girl. She actually works for me. I saw the change in her. And we've heard from two other young women, 13-year-old girls and boys, they don't make this up. This was a happy person, and she's gonna struggle for a long time. So I really want people to remember, just because he's done great things for your kids doesn't mean he's also done something horrible. As far as policy goes, school is supposed to be a safe place. You're supposed to be able to go to school, to home, to your church, to your synagogue. School has not been safe for many children. As recently as last week, a student reported that she was inappropriately physically touched by another student, and I'm sorry, the only way I can explain it is she was dry humped. And I apologize, but I don't know how else to describe it. It is my understanding that only one of two parents was contacted. The second parent, who was not contacted, reached out and did not get a phone call back in a reasonable period of time. And the solution to the problem was to remove the girl from that class. We are still punishing victims, even alleged victims. They shouldn't be punished. If someone is doing something wrong, she was being assaulted. So I would like to know what that policy is when a student is doing that, because clearly it wasn't followed this time from my understanding. And since I still have time, seriously, it's a little girl. Don't call her a young woman. She was 13 years old and terrified. She did everything she was supposed to do, and she was let down by everyone. And it's my belief that the Board of Education was not kept informed. And I keep that in. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Terry Williams, and I was a neighbor and friend to Mark Amantia for over 20 years. Although my husband sent a letter to the superintendent and the Board of Education, I would just like to take a moment to express the thoughts of my 4 children. My sons, Brett and Brian, remember Mark as a family man, a teacher, their soccer coach, and an overall good guy, and someone they looked up to and respected. My daughters, Colleen and Kelly, spent endless hours at the Amantia's house and never saw or heard anything from Mr. Amantia that made them feel awkward or uncomfortable in any regard. When this ordeal is finally over for Mr. Amantia and his family, how will he ever get his reputation back?
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Hi, my name is Scott Clay, former resident of Hopewell Township for 26 years from 1990 to 2016. The first real friend I made in Hopewell was a guy I met at basketball at Timberlane Middle School. His name was Mark Amantia. Never did I expect that over the next 2 decades, besides becoming a close friend of mine, I would see Mark everywhere in the town. It turns out he lived around the corner from me. Our wives became friends. Our first set of kids became friends. Our second set of kids became friends. We attended birthday parties, Christmas parties, picnics together, high school and college graduations, concerts, shore house visits. We babysat his kids, they babysat ours. We looked after their pets, he looked after our pets. I would go to church, and Mark would be there greeting us at the door. Mark would be then passing around the collection plate, or he'd be up reading a passage. all the kids of ours played sports of one or another. Mark would be there coaching soccer or lacrosse, and if he wasn't coaching, he'd be lining the Little League fields or be at the snack stand at the Pop Warner Field helping out there. I witnessed Mark interact with thousands of people over the years, always treating them kindly and with respect. Never did he say or do anything inappropriate or disrespectful. Therefore, I would have to strongly agree that the allegation against Mark would be unfounded as well as unbelievable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Good evening. My name is Lillian LaSalle. I lived in the community for, about 28 years or more. In 2012, I moved to Washington Crossing, Pennington Road, and one of my neighbors is Mark Amatia. And when I first met Mr. Amatia, I had known him previously because my children were in the school district. Our daughters had gone through field hockey and lacrosse together. There were many rides, cars back and forth, never an issue. I echo that sentiment. My children felt they never got that creepy vibe from Mr. Amatia. I always known him to be a man of character and the epitome of what a good neighbor is. I'm a single parent. I live alone. Whenever there was a major, any type of snowstorms, any type of anything, Mr. Amatia and his children, his son, were there to clean my snow. If ever the family asked of a tiny favor, they would then try to repay you in so many ways. It's just a humble group of people, a wonderful neighbor. I understand that what's going on in the community really grieves me as a resident. I'm not very active in the community. My work and church really take me out of the area, but I pray for my community and I'll continue to do so. And not only, we witness the letter and the sentiments, but the Amatia family is also in a lot of pain, and their daughters and families. And I pray that the matter is resolved, that the truth does come forth, but we know we live at a time where truth is hard to find. So we have to hang on to what we can. And I feel that if by faith we will get through this as a community, I pray that hearts heal, that the truth comes out, and that Mr. Amatia is not judged and his family ostracized for something that perhaps is proven to be just unwarranted. So I thank you, and I ask that we all use wisdom and that God help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staff.
My name is Kate Ham. I live on Reed Road in Pennington. 2 weeks ago, I attended the special session board meeting, and the same evening, I sent an email to every single board member here, seeking confirmation of what I had heard at that meeting. Not one of you replied, not even to say that you received my email. Tonight, I'm going to read it aloud in an effort to seek answers to my questions. Dear Board President, Board VP, and remaining board members, I write this email on the heels of an evening's Board of Education meeting. Having only been here just 2 years in the district, I've attended a few board meetings. Typically, I come to applaud the district staff and honor their efforts. I applaud students of this district who show exemplary accomplishments. Tonight was very different. In my previous district, I attended almost 100% of their board meetings over the course of 7 years there. I asked questions and demanded answers. I did it seeking clarity, transparency, honesty, and ultimately information that was otherwise withheld. Tonight, I came seeking the same and left feeling empty. Community members were baited to come out tonight and were told in the meeting that questions would be answered, only we left with exactly what we came in with: unanswered questions and a lack of confidence in the public school district. I admit, I didn't speak at the public hearing. Districts I've been involved in have 2 public hearings, and I had hoped that seeing the presence of the community that night, the board might see the need for an additional public hearing session. Though a public hearing did not occur, I did voice my concerns from the side of the room. I want to affirm the information which was received that evening to be sure that I heard the stance of Hopewell Valley Regional School District Board of Ed. I understand that much of the information regarding the case is confidential, but there are some things that the board can definitely share. I'm not looking for exact dates of a timeline, but there is definitely a timeline which can be shared. What I do believe hearing that evening was Dr. Smith sharing that DCP&P was contacted in 2016 as well as 2018. Is that what the board supports as facts? In addition, from the crowd, I asked about the vote to place educator number 4018 on leave. The small piece of info which was shared was that the district contacted DCP&P in November 2018 when they learned of the allegations. I've heard from the superintendent and the board and that other agencies such as Mercer County Prosecutor's Office and local police were notified. What I heard tonight was that it was voted that the staff member number 4018 was placed on leave while the investigation was done. Looking through agendas and minutes, I don't see any indication of the board accepting the superintendent's recommendation to place a staff member on leave until February 11th of 2019. That would be 3 months after the district claims to have learned of the accusations. If that would be the path that the district and board choose, where did the board vote to reinstate said employee? When the question was posed this evening, one of your attorneys replied stating that if the superintendent felt that the investigation was sufficient, he could make the decision to reinstate without the board voting. I don't know about all of you, but if I was a member of the Board of Education and I had voted to accept the superintendent's recommendation to place an individual on leave, you bet your bottom dollar I would have wanted to have my voice heard in voting to reinstate said employee.
Thank you,
Is
Ms.
this your
Young.
understanding?
I would prefer not to be filmed. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ellen Thomas Covell. I teach at Timberlane Middle School. I feel compelled to speak out on behalf of Mark Amantia, a teaching colleague of mine for close to 22 years. For the last 4 years, I've worked more closely with Mark as his fellow team teacher in 8th grade, and I have found that Mark is simply one of the best people I know. Working more closely on the Platinum team with him has been a great learning experience for me. Mark is an intelligent, challenging, and charismatic teacher who is a valued and beloved role model for his students. He has been a role model for me too, as I have witnessed firsthand the genuine caring and support that he shows to the students on our team. Mark's interactions are authentic and honest. He treats the students with respect, offering clear instructions and guidance, as well as kind words of encouragement to them. Mark's caring nature is also shown in the official and unofficial mentorship role he plays to many of our troubled students. Over the years, I've seen Mark playing basketball after school with some students that would otherwise be going home to an empty house, or often a fatherless one. And to truly get a sense of Mark's good-heartedness, you need only observe his interactions with the students in the PAL class next door to his own. He always makes it a point to befriend these students. It is a typical hallway scene to see him high-fiving or engaging in a lively discussion with any of them. Mark has been a leader among the many staff members at Timberlane. He is the one to whom many of us turn for advice or to talk through concerns that we may be having. He is always open-minded and thoughtful, and he has a way of dealing with troublesome issues with a cool head. It was not surprising, therefore, that Mark earned the well-deserved honor of Teacher of the Year a couple years back, as he has always been admired by staff and students alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas-Covell. Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. So there have been a few questions brought up that I will make an attempt to highlight for Dr. Smith to respond to. One of the questions that came up was who was responsible for staff training regarding the TMS and Bear Tavern activation of the Blackboard system. And they've asked about reviewing information, the training, and improving procedure. So that's one thing we can address. Number two, Ms. Mills, and anyone else who might have any information that they think is important for the board or the administration to know, we urge you to get in contact with Mr. Suzo, Dr. Smith, ourselves, or, sorry, thank you. Or if you're not confident in what, in coming to the district, you also can go to the authorities. Thank you for coming out and voicing your concerns and support. It's very much appreciated. Ms. Wallenius, if you could provide any feedback on policies, we'd certainly be welcome to hear that. The board is at this point reviewing our policies to address the shift in culture and expectations, and as we do annually anyway as a district, there's always changes, updates, and continued training. There was another question regarding policy. When a student experiences inappropriate conduct by another student, how that is handled. And that pretty much sums up all of the actual questions. And unfortunately, due to the confidentiality of this personal matter and the pending litigation, we really won't be able to respond to many of the comments and concerns.
In terms of the timeline question that was posed, because of the potential litigation in this matter, I'm going to advise that we not respond to that question at this time.
If I could, I'll respond to first the Blackboard message. After that incident, we did have a debrief. I don't know if the gentleman is still here. We did have a debrief, and that the process of notification will be changed. We do annually have a test of the system. It's usually done in October. We had planned to do it this October, but unfortunately the false alarm went out from Timberlane, so we're postponing that to take place sometime in the winter. There is a presentation on December 11th regarding our school safety, and this will be discussed, but the process will change, the notification system will change. We did address some of the issues with Blackboard in that communication. We know that some parents got the call, some parents did not, and we have hopefully resolved that. The two statements that were read, that they said that they were shared with us, we can attest that those were passed on to the authorities for further investigation. Ms. Cookman, you had the question about the situation that occurred a couple of weeks ago. I don't know the specifics of that. I don't know if it's the same one, but with students, I know we did contact the police regarding one student matter, and I know that the principal contacted the parents involved prior to moving the student. I don't know if it's the same one, so I'm prefacing or saying that after the fact. And if I could just say, I've gotten emails, as many of us have, on either side of the issue. I'd just like to reiterate the fact that any allegation is investigated. It's removed to the authorities. We notify those when we receive it. It's still out there, and we know that our tip line is there. Our tip line is monitored by district administration. That information is sent directly to either the authorities or mental health professionals, depending on what it is. That tip line is tips, T-I-P-S, at hvrsd.org. There's also a phone line that is available for anybody. And we are committed to working together to maintain a safe environment that every student feels safe and comfortable coming to our school district.
Yes, it's in the student handbook about student-to-student interactions.
So there's a policy about
How it's dealt with, yeah, if you look into the policy now, I don't know which matter we're talking about, if it's the same one.
It doesn't matter, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
we have a HIP policy if that's, that we follow, and that's online also. And the student code of conduct is also in their handbook.
So moving on to items of old business. Okay. Consent agenda. May I have a motion, please, to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Mr. DiDonato, Finance and Facilities.
Yes, I have a very big report. Unfortunately, no items are to be approved tonight. Everything's on consent. We did have a good policy or a good finance and facilities meeting tonight. We talked about our 2018-2019 audit. It's still underway, and that should be done soon. So we're optimistic of the results of that. It's been a few years since we had our demographer's report, so we're considering doing a more exhaustive, extensive demographer report. We had some contractor credits come back in the amount of about $32,000. So that's a benefit of our Sorry about that.
That one's for the TV.
Okay. Yeah, the next, we've been working on several projects in the district through the referendum, but one of the items of completion were the security vestibules, and we've received a certificate for substantial completion on the security vestibules. Outside of that, I don't have anything else.
Any questions for Mr. DiDonato? Thank you. Personnel, Ms. Tracy.
Do I have a motion to move my personnel items?
Second.
Okay. Tonight, as we were reviewing the personnel agenda this evening.
Just put it right up to your mouth, yeah. Sorry.
Is this good? Yeah, no worries. In the personnel agenda this evening, as we discuss them, we have 3 very significant retirements to the district. The first one is Doug Brower, who has been in the district since 1985 as a teacher and administrator. He's currently the supervisor of instructional technology, practical arts, and business. The second retirement we have is Allison Scarola, who's been teaching special education at the high school since 1994, as well as Alonzo King, who's been a custodian in the district since 1993, and he's currently custodian at the Hopewell Elementary. We also discussed the upcoming the Governor's Educator of the Year and Support Professional of the Year, the selection process, and this is just a reminder to the community that the nominations are still being accepted until December 6th. Additionally, we were discussing negotiations, and we have a couple coming up of contracts that expire in June 2020, and that's for the administrators and technicians. So we were discussing that we hope to begin those negotiations soon. And
we should also mention the memorandum of agreement, which I alluded to when we started this session, that we'll be approving that this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. DiDonato.
Yes.
Ms. Linthorst.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Markulek.
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Yes.
Ms. Palara.
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki.
Yes.
Ms. Tracy.
Yes.
And Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Ed program, Ms. Flora.
Thank you. Everything was on the consent agenda, but we had a very packed meeting today. Am I speaking loud enough? Can you? Yep, great, perfect. It was a very packed agenda. We had a number of new course proposals. The assistant principal, Ms. Pinello from the high school proposed creating what we are calling achievement programs within the Performing Arts Academy to provide some direct education assistance to students who may need that in addition to their performing arts curriculum. Dr. Polizzi came and presented that for the middle school, we're going to be making a change to the STEM pathway. So instead of it being a choice in 6th grade to take either computer exploratory or design and modeling being the STEM pathway, that all 6th grade students will have that opportunity to have that hands-on exposure to STEM and then be able to more fully make the decision whether or not to follow the STEM pathway in 7th and 8th grade. So that's a really positive change. And then Dr. Ogwini, am I saying that? Ogwini, amazing, came in to discuss a research project that he'll be participating in around the teaching of genetics, and I'm not going to do this justice at all, but how bias even comes into science and how teaching genetics in this different way, the research project is looking to see if racial and gender bias can be removed by teaching in this new methodology. So that was very interesting. And then Ms. DiDonato presented a professional development opportunity for, I said that, Denardo, sorry, excuse me, I'm totally sorry, for paraprofessionals in kindergarten in conjunction with Rutgers, and it is free and amazing, and we're very excited about that. And then Dr. Treese presented on the QSEC report. Lots of stuff. Also, field trips. Lots of discussion continues to happen around transparency of costs and funding for field trips and what the expectation is for families to provide and what the expectation is for district to provide. So everything on consent agenda, we're comfortable with those numbers, but we'll continue to work at making that more transparent and plan for in the more long-term planning with that. All right, any questions?
Thank you. You explained that really well.
Thank you.
So, all those in favor? Oh, that was all on consent, weren't we? Oh, we don't need that. Awesome. Community relations.
I don't have very much from this meeting. We reviewed some communication that had been sent out by the district regarding the student matter and how it had been corresponded. And then we mostly focused on the communications surrounding the new later start time committee. And I'm going to apologize because I know you just sent an email saying it's not going to be called later start time, but I can't remember what.
Start time.
Just school start time, in case that flip-flops with the elementary. So that committee has been formed and has started meeting. There's going to be...
And there's a spot on the website now.
And there's a spot on the
Resources,
website now.
committee members.
Is it December 4th when Dr. Mandelbaum?
Third.
December 3rd, Dr. Mandelbaum
right here.
is going to be speaking at the PAC regarding sort of the science behind...
Not the pack, this room.
This room.
Yep.
See, I'm all off. So he's going to be speaking here regarding the science behind the benefits to a later start time for our high school students and our middle school students. And there's been some questions in the community on how they can find out what's happening in the committee that's meeting. So there's a representative from each school, and it will be communicated out, and that representative can have questions brought to them. And I don't know, the question that come out, will the minutes be posted somewhere?
So the presentations will be posted, but there's also going to be focus groups
Okay.
in January. Elementary focus group, designated focus group, a middle school, and a high school focus group.
Okay.
For anybody who wants to come.
So that's what I have.
And, you know, for anybody who's interested in the school start time, Ms. Long and I attended Dr. Mandelbaum's presentation during our Mercer County School Boards. In addition to Princeton High School, or I should say Princeton School District Superintendent, who also presented on how they executed. Dr. Mandelbaum it was pretty profound data to support the later school start times or, you know, for older students. So I highly, you know, recommend that you come out and see that December 4th, right? Third?
Third.
We'll get this right here.
You'll get a reminder after Thanksgiving, or right before Thanksgiving. We'll send a reminder. About a week ahead of time.
Thank you. Policy?
Okay.
Mr. Wiki.
Good evening. So there's a lot that we have. I want to thank my fellow policy committee members as well as the members of the board. There's a lot on our books to go through tonight. As is typical per our board practice, November is typically the last time we put something up for first reading. That way anything that's there would be approved by December and we don't impose on future board members what's been done previously. All right, so first I'd like a motion to move the policies and regulations that are up for first reading, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have 7 items. The first ones I will address are the first 5. So we have policy and regulation 3240 for professional development of teachers and school leaders, and these primarily are driven by changes in state practices and statute. They mainly relate to how teacher evaluations are done based upon changes to how things like student growth objectives and percentiles are weighted into the evaluation system. We also have policy and regulation 8630, which relate to employer, bus driver, bus aid responsibilities for student transportation, as well as policy 8670 for transportation of special needs students. Again, these are mainly related to state mandated changes related to things like licensing. The board did add in one note, I believe, to the regulation, which basically stated that our transportation staff members, bus drivers, bus aides, will undergo the same types of training that we have for our other staff members in areas like HIB, security, safety, and equity. So that's in there now. Okay. Now, the more complex ones relate to items 6 and 7. Policy, it's basically policy and regulation, and actually I asked for one edit. You will see there, they actually apply to both policy and regulation 3281, which applied to teaching staff, as well as policy and regulation 4281, which applied to our support staff. They're basically analogous policies and regulations. The changes to the policies are relatively small. The more significant ones relate to the regulations. And as is typical when we have concerns raised by the community, we take a look at our policies and regulations to make sure they're comprehensive. In the last 2 weeks, we've taken a look at these policies and regulations, and we'll highlight some changes to the board. There's been a lot of change. It's been recent, so I appreciate board members following along with it. We just wanted to highlight some things. If anything, I would say at this point, we've done what we can for tonight. I see them continuing to change over time, and I'll explain why. The main things that we are revising now are requirements for reporting of incidents, contact with Child Protective Services and the police, in terms of that being reported in closed session to the board. We put in some language related to what are considered to be socially acceptable behaviors and norms, that they're changing and evolving, and that the reasons for the intent behind touching a student may be misconstrued. So that was intended to be some guidance. As we started this process over the last 2 weeks, we worked to try to define better what was considered to be inappropriate conduct and inappropriate contact. We started out with the premise that any touching of a student was considered inappropriate. As we went along, we came across many scenarios. We felt that something of that nature was not going to work for us. We have several students who require assistance in toileting. Cases like shaking hands at graduation. As we came up with a draft, we shared it with our staff, and they identified many other scenarios that were concerning, such as teaching students how to play musical instruments. So the longer we went along, the more we realized that we didn't quite have all the knowledge that we needed to write that section appropriately. So we've made the change to add what we have in there. We've got in there things that were there previously, clearly things like corporal punishment that are inappropriate staff conduct. So we have the changes in there. We have the reporting requirements changes. The policy committee has reviewed these. We're in agreement with them. We're recommending them for adoption at first reading. As I said, this is going to be an ongoing process, and we will continue to work to identify what will be eventually deemed as inappropriate contact and inappropriate conduct.
Thank you. I just have a question. I don't understand what you just said, that you're asking us to adopt these with only one reading instead of the...
No,
Okay.
This is first reading.
Perfect. Got it. Thank you.
So just for everyone in the audience, we have 2 readings of our policy and regulation revision, so this is first reading. So there will be, we will review this again for second reading, assume they go forward in December.
And on a related note, Ms. Gianfredi had already scheduled an SEL day for December to address some of these topics, but we're looking at right now expanding that to address more specificity to all the students. And also for staff going through and doing additional training for staff with scenarios. Staff are required to do training. Typically it's online. We've had them, the principals do it at faculty meetings, but moving forward with that, talking about specific scenarios for staff.
I'm sorry.
No.
We'll have another public comment.
Okay, I just have a question about that.
Anything else from the board? All those in favor of accepting these for first reading?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Thank you,
Motion
everyone. And
carries.
again, thank you for all the activity for everyone. We've been having a busy week and a half. All right, can I get a motion to move the policies and regulations up for second reading?
Second.
Great. Okay, I'll just highlight the ones we have. Policy and regulation 3221 for evaluation of teachers. Policy and regulation 3222 for evaluation of teaching staff members, excluding teachers and administrators. Policy and regulation 3223 regarding evaluation of administrators, excluding principals, VPs, and assistant principals. And then policy and regulation 3224 regarding the evaluation of principals, vice principals, and assistant principals. These mainly relate, as we discussed last month, they relate again to the evaluation process changes that have come about through the State Department of Education. Also oversight, reporting chains, and corrective action plan definition. So there have been no changes since last month's meeting, so we are recommending that these be approved at second reading.
Any comments from the board? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, roll call, sorry. I caught myself. May I have a roll call, please, to accept the second readings, Mr. Calavita?
Ms. Linthorst.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Markulek.
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Yes.
Ms. Pilara.
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki.
Yes.
Ms. Tracy.
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato.
Yes.
Ms. Murray.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Calendars, can we get the calendars up, Mr. Souza? Thank you.
was policy, what time do you prefer? 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock the 13th, would that work?
What was that, Tom? 8 o'clock on the 13th.
Yes, the board meeting will start at 7 on the 16th.
We'll start at 7.
7. So we have to bump back. Like this.
So for personnel.
Move everything back a half an hour?
Can we have finance, a different day other than that day? Than the board meeting day?
Fine.
We cannot.
You guys can coordinate that?
I don't know if I could. That whole month is crazy. Can we do it in the morning? Or do you want to? Like, we actually don't have a ton of items that need to go through for.
I feel sometimes it is not a rush because we go through everything we need to and we have time, but knowing that there's another meeting come up and then another meeting after that, I thought maybe,
So we have an hour.
so we'll have an hour?
Yeah, we'll have an hour from 6:30 to
5:30.
or 5:30 to 6:30.
Okay. So personnel's not meeting after
6:30.
Yeah, they'll meet at 6:30.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, we can do 5:30.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to make community
Can we
relations.
do the 10th? Does that work? I'm trying to get it before the board meeting. Does it work? The 10th work?
Earlier the better.
When can you get here? I mean, I can.
3:30.
Does that work for you, John?
Let me just double check. Sure, it does. I can check something if it doesn't. Yep.
3:30?
10.
Great.
Okay, I'm putting it in.
You have to go.
The 11th is our school safety presentation.
That's why I didn't say the 11th. I saw that on the calendar.
Approving of the calendars. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Any items of new business anyone wants to bring up? Okay, moving on. We'll open our second public comment session. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You're asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. Public comment is now open.
Hello, my name is Heidi Millennius. I live in Hopewell Borough. I have 2 questions. One is regarding the policy, and I just want to clarify the policy committee meeting. Is that before the next board meeting, and will there be a chance for the and is that a public meeting or is that a closed meeting? And in the policy, 2 things that I specifically noted is I didn't see anything explicitly stating that the parents be notified of any accusations or incidents, and I'm wondering what the board's, if that was intentionally left out, what the board's reasoning was for that. Obviously excluding if the parent was the person who was accused of the assault, I could understand that, but in any other situation, I would be curious to hear the board's reasoning if they were intentionally left out. Also, item A3 and the regulation 3281 uses the phrase physical conduct of a sexual nature that are sufficiently severe. And I'm just curious if there's any conduct of the sexual nature that what would be insufficiently severe? It's phrasing I really question in that particular policy. And then on another topic, I have a question about the bills and claims report that was in the finance report. I'm looking at page 23 and 24. It does appear that a payment was made to Marcin and Katie Redzitsky. It looks like tuition, $5,700 a month for September and October, and it says judgments against district, and there is on page 24 for an Antonio Maticoli, a judgment against district for $2,500. And this just made me ask, in general, do we know the total amount that the district pays out because of judgments made against the district? I realize that you may not be able to speak about specific cases, but I'm wondering what the total financial hit is to the district because of judgments made. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melenius.
Can't help myself. Melissa Cookman, 35B East Broad Street, Hopewell Borough. First of all, for the Board of Education, you are volunteers, and thank you. I know you take a lot of emotion from a lot of us on every side, and as a volunteer, I really appreciate your tone. I just wanted to make a thought. I was looking at the regulation that you've just recently rewritten, and when it's in the second paragraph, examples of inappropriate contact. I would just like to suggest, instead of affection, it's about control. So when someone puts your hands on your shoulder, that's not necessarily affection if they're holding you, and I think that would be either replaced or addition if you would just consider that as something, because that's it's control, and that's not good. The other thing, and I don't think it's come up yet for discussion, was, but in this regulation also, I'm looking at that when all the investigations are taking place, and I understand how complicated it is, and the assistant superintendent is obviously the overseer of all this, but it seems that in one part here, it's, they can interview the students and other students who may have been involved, and I would encourage the board to consider that there should be an advocate for that student. They're going to be afraid and scared, and the assistant superintendent is, I mean, that's it. You know, he has power, and so I think it would be good for there to be some kind of, I don't know what exactly, but some kind of advocate or somebody there so that the student feels safe enough to speak freely. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cookman.
Hi, I'm Judith Kelly. I'm a resident of Hopewell Township. I'm also a staff member for 24 years and 10 months. On behalf of the board negotiation team, we want to thank you for the respect and professionalism you showed us during our collective bargaining agreement update. This was a relatively painless process this time, and we really appreciate it, and we agree with you that we have a fair and equitable agreement. And this is our president.
I'm Ida Valcarcel, I'm president of the Hopewell Valley Educational Support Association. And again, I just want to reiterate what Judy said. We thank you for amicable negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you both. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing none, Public comment is now closed. Just give us a moment.
So just responding to Ms. Millennius' policy committee is typically done virtually. It's a call-in. So just discussing, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm there, but I don't want to speak for the. On the flip side, we recognize that this policy, even its second reading, will probably be revisited after the new year. The reason why they're trying to get something done is a board can't start a policy with one board and finish it with another board. So if we worked on it, it wouldn't be, you would span 2 boards because the new board reorganization is in January. So the thinking is to get the policy in place regarding the reporting and address as many issues, and then probably reopen it again.
So my point is there a chance for consideration of issues that are brought?
Absolutely. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you look at what was in first reading today, if you send specific comments to Dr. Smith and myself, you will ensure that they are discussed at our meeting. You also have the board meeting in December where we will have public comment before we vote on second reading for the policy. So absolutely, you would be able to comment on that as well. And if I can address one thing with regard to your concern about the use of the term sufficiently, we looked at it, we thought it was in reference to a description of the student's ability to participate in and benefit from the educational program. If the wording of the sentence is considered a little bit concerning, we can certainly look to change it.
And what about the parental issue, parental notification?
We'll discuss that as well.
So you don't have a specific answer at this point as to why that's something?
No, and I think we have to do further research.
I can also comment on the sufficiently severe or pervasive language that I think it was you that alluded to before. That comes from New Jersey Supreme Court case law defining what sexual harassment is. So conduct may certainly be inappropriate, but unless it's severe, pervasive, that sort of thing, it doesn't necessarily rise to the level of being sexual harassment, as that term is defined by New Jersey's law against discrimination, Title VII, and some of the other anti-discrimination statutes.
The board doesn't have a comment about why parent notification was included in that policy.
So the policies are generated by a policy committee, a policy organization, Strauss Esme. So it's a boilerplate that's throughout the state, just so you're aware. But as we revisit it, I think as Chair Sawicki said, as Chair of the Policy Committee, you're bringing that up.
So it will be considered, right?
Yeah, it was not, the bolds are the changes.
Okay.
So, are the recommended changes, and the committee decided to leave the strikeouts of the bolds, even though that they were stricken, they were being discussed. And I know it kind of looks like a spider web through it, and I apologize for that, but it's a work in progress and wanted to show the work. But that will definitely be discussed.
And the one other thing that Ms. Cookman had mentioned regarding advocates for students during interviews.
Typically, and I mean, Mr. Souza can respond to this, but it's there's usually a teacher, somebody they know, and or the parent involved.
And their counselor.
Judgments, about the judgments. Mr. Colby, did you want to respond to the?
Judgments against the district are typically, that's a term used again by the New Jersey Chart of Accounts, state chart of accounts that govern how accounts are labeled. There's approximately $250,000 worth of judgments that all relate to settlements in special education.
The judgments could just be settlements not a judgment against the district.
They
It's
are
a
all
legal
settlements
agreement.
regarding special education
It's
tuition.
but it's a legal agreement, not necessarily.
Correct. They don't have to be special education, in this case they are.
And that's not gonna be in public record.
Not deleted it. There was a redaction that was missed.
May I have a motion, please, to exit our public session and enter executive session, as we will need to discuss harassment, intimidation, and bullying matters, a special education student matter, a legal matter regarding the tort claim, personnel matter employee number 4018, personal matter employee 4209, and personal matter employee 4036. And action may be taken when we come back into public session.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed, abstained. Motion carries. Thank you.
So it's good. So it's a little too much. Like there's water
Charts of numbers. You did beautifully with that.